Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He is Lindsay Crosby. I am Ben Taylor. It is brought to you by Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com. Promo code BRAVES, 10% off. You needed it to stay up for the sweep this weekend. That's for sure, as the Braves look good. First home series, first home sweep. That's a good way to start the season. And Chris Sale is the one that brought home the bacon at the end of the weekend, Lindsay.
Yeah, I love having Chris Sale on this team, man. I really do. Chris Sale was a ton of fun. I talked to him in spring training, getting to watch him today. Unfortunately, couldn't stay in Atlanta for Game 3. I was in the press box for 1 and 2.
Yep.
But no, Chris Sale's just a ton of fun, dude. I mean, he's a competitor. He really enjoys Atlanta. This was his first start in the ballpark today, and some of the quotes that were coming out from afterwards. He just likes being here, man. He likes being here, likes pitching this ballpark, likes pitching in front of these fans, likes the group of guys. He's a dog. And the big thing here is I wrote about this on Saturday morning after the news of Strider being injured, but before we knew what it was. I wrote that Alex Anthopoulos was vindicated by the choice to go out and get Chris Sale. Because I've said this a million times. You could have ran it back. There was nothing stopping you from that's what Philly did. Philly ran it back. They re-signed Nola. They re-upped Wheeler. The only real additions they made, they signed a utility man in Whit Merrifield and 2 6th or 7th starter options in Spencer Turnbull and our old friend Colby Allard. They're just running it back. And Alex Anthopoulos said, no, I'm not going to just run it back. We're going to go out and make the team better. And I think Chris Sale now is probably the most important, not only the most important offseason addition, probably one of the 5 most important Atlanta Braves right now. Simply because it looks like you have lost Spencer Strider. You're going to need somebody to step up in the postseason and take those innings. And Chris Sale's one of the few pitchers out there that I think could strike out guys like Spencer Strider has in the postseason.
Yeah, from a pitching standpoint, Kelnick's not a bad ad. If we can keep him batting over 500, we'll have a good season as well. I know that's not going to happen, but it's still fun to talk about.
That game tying double that he hit. Yeah. It was funny because we asked him after the game, did you think it was going to fall? And he's like, I was praying it was. The expected batting average on that hit, .010. Wow. It's almost never falls. And in this case, it fell, and it tied the game. So you love that.
That's the kind of thing that'll boost your confidence too. Chris Sale today, I mean, he had the day that you and I have talked about we're going to need out of him, the Braves are. 5 1/3, 4 hits, 2 runs, no walks. That's huge.
No walks.
He went to quite a few 3-2 counts, and but he did have 6 Ks on the day too, and he really tied up some batters. It's funny because from the booth, they were even talking about how embarrassing it is to swing and miss at a ball that hits you, and then that happens later on in the game. Whenever he's up there, because they were referencing another game that took place, I think yesterday, or as we record this, it was a Saturday game where another player had done that, and it bounced off his shoulder and off his face. And even Francoeur even said, yeah, that's one of those, you go back to the dugout and you start telling everybody, I know what happened. Don't bring it up. I get it. And then wasn't an inning later, that's exactly what Chris Sale ends up doing to a player, as well as locking him up.
And if you he went pretty heavy on the slider. The thing that stood out to me, I think, the biggest thing was not only one, like I talked about, the slider is back to what it was when he was healthy and he was a dominant force, even in Boston. But he didn't shake off Chadwick Tromp one time. He went with whatever Tromp called every single time. And this is now, Tromp has caught both of Strider's both of Sale's games now.
Yeah.
So his 2 starts, Chadwick Tromp has done them both. I'm not saying we're going to have a personal catcher situation, but for some reason, it's just working between the 2 of them. I don't hate going slider heavy there because his slider is so unique, because it's coming from the opposite batter's box. And like you said, it'll hit you on the foot. And it's a very difficult look for these hitters. And Chadwick Tromp picked up on it, continued to go back to it, and it just kept working. So, 96 pitches, 69 strikes. Really nice outing for Chris Sale. Really happy with how it went. Like you said, this is the kind of thing you need from him. And really, 5 1/3, I'm fine with that. All you got to do is a 5 and dive here. We've got the bullpen, as we saw this weekend. We've got the bullpen to pick these guys up, to carry the load. That's, I think, one of the other big takeaways from this weekend, besides the comebacks and all of that,
Right.
just how dominant the bullpen was.
The bullpen, 14 in the third inning pitch, 5 hits, 5 walks, 7 Ks, and allowed 0 runs. And everybody thinks, well, you see the innings and they go, 0 runs, that's what a bullpen's supposed to do. Not when your 2 starters look as bad as they looked on Friday and Saturday for the Atlanta Braves. We were asking a lot out of the bullpen over the weekend.
You had to cover more than half the game, in some of these. And that's what a bullpen's supposed to do. Arizona's bullpen didn't do that in any of the 3 games. Atlanta wins because Arizona's bullpen didn't do that in the first 2 games. Just point blank.
Yeah.
Castro gave up, I think it was 2 runs on Saturday and 2 again on Sunday. The thing about this bullpen, this is probably one of the deepest bullpens we've had in a while, because I feel like you've got 4 lefties. I can't remember a time I've seen 4 lefties in the same bullpen, guys that you really liked and trusted. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing too, and I was kind of curious about this, we got a little bit of an answer today. It feels like Atlanta's always kind of had a former closer as their, if our closer and our back end guys are all down, right? Mm-hmm. Iglesias pitched on Friday and Saturday. He was down for Sunday. Look at last year. Kirby Yates was your former closer who came into that situation and closed the game out. I was curious who was going to be that guy this year. Pierce Johnson was that guy. He comes in the 9th, gives up 1 hit, but otherwise shuts it down. Tyler Matzik was his setup man, came in, 1 walk, otherwise shut it down. You can't talk enough about the depth of this bullpen and the fact that they were overused, because Jesse Chavez had to cover multiple innings on Friday on short notice. Dylan Lee covered 2 2/3 innings on Saturday. So they're both down for Sunday. One, that's part of the reason you went out and you got Winans when you did. But the fact that they stepped up and were so shut down all weekend. John Smoltz told me when I talked to him on this show, you need 3 hitters, you need 3 starters, and you need 3 relievers. If those guys are hot, you can win in the postseason. And right now, you feel like if you had to find 3 relievers who could get it done out of this bullpen, you could do that twice. You could find 2 different groups of 3 relievers who could carry a load for you. And that's the kind of depth that you need to get through a season and then to make it through October.
I gave the series numbers for the bullpen, but you and I were talking ahead of time. They've looked good. I know it's a short year thus far, but you and I were already at the beginning of last year talking about how the bullpen needed to get better even at the first of the year. It's almost a total reversal of what we saw last year that the Braves needed to do. Is this year, it seems like they've had a come to Jerusalem talk out there in the bullpen, and all of a sudden they're deciding, hey, we're not going to start out like we did last year. We're going to go ahead and start out on the right foot and hopefully continue and use our depth, like you just talked about. Use our depth to our advantage, and it's worked thus far.
Yeah. Okay, so these numbers from Baseball Reference, granted, they do not include Sunday's game because that doesn't update until overnight. But 2.10 ERA for the bullpen. That's going to drop, obviously, because you didn't give up any runs today. 30 innings, 7 earned runs, only 2 homers in 30 innings, 24 strikeouts, opposing batting average allowed of 181 with a 267 slugging. Those are very good numbers for a bullpen.
Yep.
I haven't checked the full league, but I would imagine that's probably one of the lower ERAs for a bullpen in all of baseball.
And today they were 3 2/3 with a hit, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. So that the numbers are just going to be better from what you looked at once the Baseball Reference ends up updating those numbers as far as this weekend is concerned, or Sunday is concerned, whenever they look at the numbers for the Braves. Hey, need to get you guys to go over to plainscoffee.com, use promo code Braves, get 10% off. You can check out all the stuff that they have where you can get it straight to your doorstep. They don't roast the beans until you make your order. Every order roasted and shipped the same day. Get coffee to your doorstep, whether it's flavored, whether it's just regular coffee, or whether you're looking at getting some tea. Head over to plainscoffee.com, enter the promo code BRAVES, and get your 10% off. All right, we transition from the bullpen. Now some people are asking about the Winans call-up because that was announced during Sunday's matchup. Actually, not just announced, he's already in the dugout. They showed him he was in full uniform. So, I mean, he made the short drive from Gwinnett to the ballpark. So I know that everybody's thinking it's because of Strider, but there's also other factors in with that as well. He faced the Mets last year. They're going to need some starting pitching help. Plus, who knows if the pen's going to need some help as well.
Yeah, so Winans was a scheduled starter for Gwinnett on Sunday. That's why they went ahead and made the move Sunday morning. He was told Saturday night, so he was able to get up first thing in the morning and drive into town. The reason that they went ahead and called up a starter was, I guess, twofold. One, they could have called a reliever up and then made a move to replace that reliever on Wednesday, the scheduled next start date for Spencer Strider. But if you do that, whatever reliever you send down can't come back up for like 2 weeks. So that's kind of a thing there. But then two, they wanted a guy who has pitched some in relief in the past and could take bulk innings because you use Chavez, you use Lee. Snitker told us that Chavez probably wouldn't be back available till Monday and told us that Lee probably wouldn't be back until about Tuesday. And so they wanted somebody in the pen, a fresh arm who you could, if you needed to, you could run him out there for 3 innings. If you had another blow up and had to cover more at bulk innings, you could do that. And if you don't need to do that, then he's available for Wednesday. They did this last year too with both Darius Vines and Michael Soroka late in the year. They called him up, stuck him in the pen. And I remember, I think it was Soroka had to pitch in relief. Vines did not. And so when Soroka ended up not making the start they thought he was going to make, they had to make another move. Vines hung out for a couple days, got that big league check, and then started on the scheduled day. The thing about Winans is, one, he used to be a reliever, so that he used to work under the bullpen.
Right.
But then two, he used to be part of the Mets organization. And so now he gets to start against the Mets on Wednesday. It'll actually be, he's made 6 major league starts, and 2 of them have been against the Mets. And savvy readers of Braves Today will remember I was a little mad about the way they did this. His first start against the Mets, his second career start in the majors, it was in New York. This was the game Atlanta won 21-3.
Yep.
Winans goes 7 scoreless innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. And I guess Atlanta he was the extra man in the doubleheader. And Atlanta's so impressed with this. And the schedule is so dumb where you face them for another series the next week. Atlanta calls him up to face the Mets again at home, and he gets absolutely blasted. 7 runs on 9 hits and 4 1/3 innings. And the issue I had with this at the time, people disagreed with me and told me I'm wrong, but I'm not going to listen to that argument, is Alan Winans throws his fastball at 89.8 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he throws 4 pitches about evenly. A changeup, which is his best pitch, by far his best pitch. A slider, a sinker, and a 4-seamer. And he's not going to blow it past anybody, right? He's getting by on sequencing and great location. And so throwing him in back-to-back games against the Mets completely negates what he's good at, which is sequencing. Because you can, if you're throwing 4 pitches, you can only vary the order in which you throw those pitches so much when guys get, in essence, 6 at-bats against you because they faced you 3 times last weekend and they turn around and face you 3 more. And so it's probably been long enough where he's going to be fine on Wednesday. I'm probably going to eat crow on this, but I was mad about how they used him last year. His ERA it's like 5.5 from last year, and it looks so bad because he got blasted against the Mets because 7 runs because they used him in back-to-back. To me, it was almost baseball malpractice to throw him out there against the Mets again. They should have worked it out, called somebody else up for the start, and then let him pitch a different game.
See, I was one that agreed with you. I saw some of the takes where people didn't agree and some of the messages that we got and that kind of thing. However, As I told you before we got on the pod, he basically faced the Mets 11 to 12 straight innings. And anytime you throw any pitcher for that many straight innings against a team, a major league hitting ball club, you can't expect a high success rate. Now, there are some that say so-and-so owns this team. So-and-so owns this team. Like every time they face them, they seem to do well. Those also are Cy Young Award winners that own other teams. They're not guys that you're calling up from AAA to fill a void because one of your starters is. They don't usually own any team. He did the Mets the first time around, but after they saw him for 11 innings straight, they were like, okay, we've got the 89-mile-per-hour fastball figured out.
If we talk about a third time through the order penalty, what's the penalty for 4, 5, and 6 times through the order? Because it can't be good. It can't be good. And that was the whole thing here, right? Like that's a sequencing and location guy. You can't expose him that much to the same team. And like I said, I'm assuming it'll be fine. There was a lot of Mets turnover, a lot of guys injured, things like that. They've got, they got some new players. They got some of the guys who didn't have great years last year. It should be fine if he ends up making the start on Wednesday. If he's not needed on Monday or Tuesday in long relief, but I want him to do well. Trust me. Like, don't get me wrong. I want him to do well. Part of me wonders, Bryce Elder I think he pitched Saturday. AJ Smith-Shawver had pitched Friday. It would have been iffy on there. Part of me wonders, could you have maybe grabbed Darius Vines or somebody else who hasn't faced the Mets twice? Washington, same thing. Washington faced him twice last year.
Right.
First game, 5 innings, 2 runs. Next game, 5 innings, 6 runs. So the Mets are seeing him for a third time in his last 6 starts. I'm hoping enough times pass where it's going to be fine.
Clearly, the scouting report is out on him. That's for sure, as far as the Mets are concerned. Speaking of the Mets, slow start as they start out 0-5 to begin the year. However, after that 2 postponed games in Detroit, they are 3-2. With a split in Detroit with not a split. They actually went 1-2 in Detroit with the Tigers, and then went 2-1 against Cincinnati, who I thought was going to be a pretty good ball club this year. So I can't really tell, Lindsay, if just the first game that was postponed to begin the season for them against Milwaukee, and they just kind of been up and down. They've had a couple of extra inning games. I mean, what do we expect out of this Mets club whenever they come into Atlanta?
I feel like I'm a little contrarian today because a lot of people like the Mets as a sleeper wildcard team, and I'm like, what Mets team are you looking at? This pitching's atrocious, right? Yeah. Like it's the pitching staff is not good. You don't have Senga. You just lost Miguel. Like I think your ace right now is Jose Quintana, maybe. That's your ace. And so the pitching matchups work out for Atlanta. They just signed old friend Julio Teheran on Saturday, and he starts on Monday. So he comes back to Truist Park for the first time since he was released. I think it's first time. Facing Charlie Morton. I like Atlanta in that one. Adrian Hauser versus Ronaldo Lopez. I think Hauser's been one of their better pitchers this year. I still think being at home with this offense, I still like the Braves there. Quintana versus probably Winans on Wednesday. I think Atlanta has the advantage from the perspective of neither pitcher is probably going to be expected to do a ton, but I think Atlanta has the much better offense. And then Thursday, Luis Severino, who, when he's good, is good. When he's bad, is bad, versus Max Fried, who I don't know what to think about Max Fried.
I do.
Yeah, but when I look at this team, I look at Jeff McNeil's batting .091. Francisco Lindor's batting .032. This is not a good team right now. This is not a good Mets offense. This is an amazing Atlanta offense. I like Atlanta to win 3 out of 4. I don't know what's going to happen Wednesday. I think if you drop one, it's probably going to be that Wednesday matchup. But either way, I like Atlanta to win 3 out of 4.
See, I go 2-2, and I say that the Braves win the opener and they win the Fried game. And the reason being is because of what Fried said in his comments.
I got to pick my shit up. That was the quote from him.
Exactly. And a pissed off Max Fried.
He looked right at me when he said that too, and I didn't ask the question. And I'm like, it wasn't me, Max. What are you doing?
Well, he
scared me a little bit.
He is, when he's pissed off Max Fried, that's the Max Fried that I like. And it seems like he hasn't been that in the first 2 appearances. So I think against the Mets, we'll see that on Thursday. It will be a day game for him, but still, I expect a lot more out of Fried come Thursday. So I'm saying 2-2, and that's you know me, I'm usually Mr. Optimistic, but for some reason right now, the role that they're on, I just feel like I don't know that we can get a sweep out of the Mets.
Hey, you called the sweep and got the sweep. So, I mean, you're 1 for 1 on this so far. Let's go with it. Just, you say 2-2, I say 3-1. We'll see what happens, but you're up 1 series to none on the year so far.
I'm saying 2-2 with a hope of the sweep just because I don't like the Mets. So that's
who does. Mets fans don't like the Mets.
Exactly. They don't. I got a buddy that's that way. Hey, it's all brought to you by plainscoffee.com. Go there and enter the promo code BRAVES. Get your 10% off. Lindsay's got a bunch of stuff that's going to be up as far as this week is concerned on bravestoday.com. Recaps already there if you want to go and you want to follow that. Plus, there are a lot of other things. We got the Winans thing coming up. We're going to have a Mets preview that's going to be out there. There's a ton of stuff that you can read.
Rotation replacements for Spencer Strider.
Exactly.
Going through options like that. Why Atlanta's not going to trade for another starter. That piece is coming out too. So lots of stuff to look forward to.
Because we got 14 starters in the minors right now.
And we don't have the money to pay them without going into another luxury tax year. That's the other big reason.
Exactly.
Spoiler alert.
All of that stuff at bravestoday.com. Lindsay, as always, I greatly appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, buddy.